The Innovators Network.
Welcome to the Killer Innovation Show, the longest continuously produced podcast in history. Each week, Phil McKinney brings you the insights and strategies to amplify your creativity and innovation skills. Here's your host, Phil McKinney.
Welcome to this week's episode. How have you been doing? Hopefully you've been working on your ideas that you've got in your idea notebook. We just came off of a two-part series talking about innovation agency. One of the questions I got recently as part of that, though, was around innovation strategy. I guess I mentioned it briefly. I don't recall. I have to go back and listen, I guess. But today we're going to talk about innovation strategy. Do all organizations need an innovation strategy? Should you have an innovation strategy? I would argue that organizations of almost any size would be well served if they created an innovation strategy and aligned it, tied it with, and became part of the overall business strategy. Now, I'm not a big believer of big strategy documents and doing, really kind of exhaustive, but it's good to get some of the basics captured. Provide clarity, provide transparency so that everybody on the team understands what the mission and objective of your innovation effort is within your organization. So that is what we're going to talk about today, is what is an innovation strategy, and most importantly, what are the elements that you should include in your innovation strategy efforts. So, before we jump into this week's episode, got that favor to ask. Can you follow, like, and share? Follow us on social media. Stay up with what we're doing, all of our postings and ongoing conversations occurring in all the social medias, Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, Twitter, you name it. So follow us, like the show. Wherever you get your podcast, go over, give us a thumbs up, give us a review. That helps, and share. If today's episode, specifically around innovation strategy, is something that resonates with you or you think is something your organization should consider, forward the show over to them. Send them a link to the show notes over at killerinnovations.com. Send that over to them, or just go to the bottom of the show notes. There's a link always at the bottom of the show notes. That is a link directly to the MP3 audio. So therefore, you can just send them that link and they can just listen it on whatever browser device they happen to be on. So again, follow, like, and share. Would greatly appreciate it. And with that, let's hop in to this week's episode.
This episode is sponsored by Zoom. With Zoom, you can streamline your communication, collaboration, and creativity all in one place. Zoom is the market-leading platform that provides video meetings, voice, webinars, and chat across desktops, phones, tablets, and conference room systems. To learn more about Zoom and sign up for your free account, visit killerinnovations.com/Zoom.
You need an innovation strategy. But what is it? An innovation strategy is a plan that outlines how a business, how an organization will create, develop, and bring new products and services to market. It can be used to guide the efforts of individual employees or entire teams and should be tailored to the unique needs of the organization. Now, a lot of people overlook creating an innovation strategy, but it is so important. It needs to be part of the overall business strategy for every organization. A company's innovation strategy helps to ensure that new products and new services are developed and brought to market in a timely and efficient manner that creates unique competitive advantage. It also helps to ensure that the organization's innovation programs and initiatives remain competitive and relevant, given that the marketplace, the competition, the needs of your customers are constantly changing. If a business does not have an innovation strategy, it will fall behind its competitors. So what should you include in your innovation strategy? What does an innovation strategy need to contain? Well, first off, you need to have your definition of innovation. An organization's definition of innovation should include in the plan to ensure that all the team members are on the same page with regards to what is meant by the term. Innovation is a loaded term. It gets misused, misapplied, and misinterpreted so many different ways. An organization's definition could include aspects such as how creative are you looking for it to be? How much risk-taking are you willing to bring on? Are you looking for newness, freshness, totally new kinds of innovations outside of your core business? It is important to have a clear understanding of these aspects so that everyone can be on the same page when it comes to brainstorming, developing, selecting, prioritizing new ideas. So what is your definition of innovation? Are you focusing on incremental innovation, breakthrough game-changing innovation, adjacent innovations? There's literally hundreds of different ways for you to define it. In your innovation strategy, you need to be crystal clear. Number 2, you need to describe the company's innovation process. Now, this isn't just how do you do a brainstorm and how do you select ideas. It's important to include a description of the overall process. This will help team members understand how new ideas are developed within the organization. It'll provide the frameworks. It'll give a decision criteria, which ideas will get selected, which ideas will not get selected. This description of the innovation process should include information on how ideas are generated. Are you going to do it by brainstorming or having an idea management system or electronic suggestion box, market surveys, ethnographic studies? How are you going to generate ideas? How are you going to evaluate them? What's the criteria? How are they going to be implemented? And the overall innovation management approach. All of that needs to be included in this description of the organization's innovation process. Number 3, identification of the organization's innovation goals. What should be the innovation goals of the organization? Now, this is not innovation metrics. We've talked about innovation metrics in the past. I've written about it a lot. Go search for that information. What we're talking about here is the overall organization communicating what its goals are for innovation. Now, why are they important? They need to be specific. They need to be measurable, achievable, relevant. They need to be time-bound. They need to be aligned with the company's overall business strategy. So this is where innovation strategy and business strategy start to match up. And it's having these specific goals will help team members stay focused when coming up with and developing new ideas. So, what are some examples of innovation goals that I've put into innovation strategies? I've helped other organizations create their strategies, or ones that we have in the innovation strategies of the organization where I'm at now. So these are just some samples. This is not the exclusive list. You need to come up with ones that are appropriate, that fit your organization. So here are some examples. One is increasing market share by X% within the next 5 years through the introduction of new products and services. It's measurable. I want to drive market share. It's time-bound. I'm going to do it within the next 5 years. And how am I going to do that? Through the introduction of new products and services. Second one would be developing a new product that will generate X dollars of revenue within the next X number of years. Another, reducing manufacturing costs by X% within the next number of years through the implementation of new technologies. So you're focusing it. going after new technologies with the mission to reduce manufacturing costs by a certain percentage. So they have that clear goal in there. Increasing customer satisfaction ratings by X% within the next number of years through the introduction of new processes, new technologies, new strategies, new marketing, whatever it might be. And here's another one that I came up with, and one that I've seen used is creating new business models that will increase profitability by X% within Y number of years. And business model innovation is one that most organizations tend to overlook. They have their model, they know how they make revenue, they focus on, new features, new functionality, new capabilities of existing products. This case, specifically task your organization to go create an entirely new business model, and that the objective is to do that and increase profitability by some measurable amount and do it within a certain time frame. So again, number 3 was identification of the innovation goals. What are they? Be clear so everybody knows what success looks like. Number 4, identification of the company's key stakeholders. If you're going to create an innovation strategy, you need to identify the company's key stakeholders. It's important to get them involved, consider who they are, understand their vested interest in the success of the organization's innovation initiatives. Now, who are these stakeholders? Well, some of the stakeholders could include people such as the CEO, senior management, marketing department, R&D department, sales. You need to think through who should be involved in, provide input to, and be engaged with the execution of the innovation strategy. Now, it's important to not only identify them, but consult with them. Get them involved. Get their input. If you don't, the likelihood of success when you go to start implementing your innovation strategy will be almost zero. Getting people involved early, don't do this in secret or confidence or hidden away. Be public about it. You're building this strategy document for your innovation strategy for the organization, and you want to get people's input. So number 4, identify who those stakeholders are and put it in the strategy document. What input did they provide? The fact that they were part of the group that created the document, you can use that as momentum to push the execution of the strategy throughout the organization. Number 5, identify the resources needed to support the innovation strategy. Believe me, this is a hard one. This is the one where a lot of organizations just struggle. It's important to identify the resources needed to support the plan. Now, this includes both financial and non-financial resources. It's not just headcount. It could be money, facilities. It could include things such as funding R&D. It could include things like employee training. If you need to train your staff on the innovation strategy and beef up their innovation skills, you need to instill innovation leadership. See, innovation leadership skills are different than just standard traditional leadership skills. So you may need to train them. Some of the non-financial resources could be things like office space. You already have that within your organization, but you want to carve out a corner. For one of my teams years ago, I actually built them a walled-off studio with a separate key card door access. So they had a place to go to work on their programs and projects outside of the prying eyes of executive leadership. It could also include using equipment, using manufacturing facilities, taking advantage of software that's already contained. Be clear about what resources you need in order to support the innovation strategy. And number 6, a timeline for implementation. It is important to include a timeline in the plan. This will help team members stay on track and ensure that the goals of the plan are met within the set time frame. So this may be you're thinking, okay, this is an innovation strategy effort that's going to go on for an extended period of time. It's going to go on forever. Not really. Innovation strategy plans need to be something that get refreshed on a regular basis. So what's the timeline? What is it that you're trying to achieve? It could be one of the innovation goals is not about driving margin or whatever, but to generate so many ideas in the first, year or 2 years, or to get one product out from the innovation team in the first year, or some other metric. What is that timeline? Be clear. Set the timeline. Timeline should be specific, and it should also include not just, hey, trust us 2 years from now, we're going to deliver magic. You need to include milestones. So that way, along the way, you can give status and you can build confidence within the organization that you are achieving the timeline that you've set for the innovation strategy. So again, number 6, a timeline for implementation. It is important. Number 7, a plan for assessing the success of the innovation strategy. Do not leave this to your boss or lead this to the CEO or lead this to some other leader. You define the success criteria. You define how to measure it. And you get that agreed to and aligned when you create the innovation strategy. Trust me, this will save you a lot of heartache and a lot of headache over arguing whether your effort, your execution, your team, your organization's innovation efforts have been successful by getting that defined up front and not trying to convince people that the work has been successful at the other end. Now, the assessment should include things such as, how many new ideas have been generated, how many of those ideas have been implemented, how have they impacted the company's bottom line, how are you going to measure how they impacted the bottom line. It should include, though, also feedback from employees, customers, and the other stakeholders. Feedback that is constructive is helpful. You want to hear that. Took too long, too slow, not big enough impact, kind of a ho-hum. Oh my gosh, this was fantastic. You want to hear that feedback. So when you are planning for that assessing of success, include that collection of feedback. And that then becomes part of a regular cadence of your innovation efforts so that you can use that feedback to make adjustments to the overall innovation strategy as needed. Number 8, what is the system for documenting and sharing best practices? I would expand that a little bit to also include lessons learned. And believe me, you're going to get a lot of lessons learned. Things that work, things that don't work. But you need to have a mechanism to ensure that that information is shared and it's implemented throughout the organization. And you need to have a system to do that. Now, this could include things such as a database of best practices, a wiki page, an internal blog, a Slack channel, whatever tools you have. Make sure that you have a system for documenting and sharing the lessons learned, best practices, etc. Now, the system needs to be easily accessible to everybody, not just your innovation team, not just your R&D team. Be transparent. Let other teams learn from what your team is experiencing, what your organization is experiencing as you execute, as you implement your innovation strategy. Now, in my case, in my organization, we do what I refer to as postmortems, but they're they call it a different term, and at the top of my head, I can't recall exactly the term they use internally. But it's basically at the end of a project, go back and think about it, evaluate it. What went right? What went wrong? What should we do differently the next time? What questions should we have asked at the beginning in order to be better prepared to execute? What questions should we have asked that would have either moved this project higher in the priority or not selected this project? So we're constantly evaluating the entire effort, not just what was specific about the project, but even back to how was that project selected? Why was it selected? Is that the right set of questions we asked to make the selection of this project? Did we miss something from a customer when we were talking with them? Should we have asked this other question to get some more input? Therefore, we would have built a better product or avoided going down a rabbit hole or whatever it might be. So again, system for documenting and sharing both the best practices and lessons learned. I cannot overemphasize this. Think about those systems. Starting out, if you're putting together a new team, new organization, you don't need to go out and hire big, license big, expensive innovation management tools. You can start off with what you've got, prove your success, then grow yourself into the right set of tools that would work for your right organization. But fundamentally, you could use email, a Slack channel, a database, a wiki page, an internal blog, however you want to share it. But make sure you're capturing it. Don't put that off. That you should be doing day one in your innovation strategy. Number 9, guidelines for evaluating new innovations. So when you're evaluating new areas, it's important to consider the potential impact they're going to have on the organization. The evaluation should include a review, and it should include also the feasibility. This is what we refer to in the FIRE framework, the ranking, right? So not only does it have a positive impact on an end user, but boy, when you try to implement and all the change management that's needed inside of your organization, think that through. Think that through carefully. And the team should also assess the risks and benefits and whether it aligns with the company's innovation goals. Keep the innovation goals in mind. Be careful because as innovators, we sometimes will get overly excited. We chase the shiny object, the new thing, something that, wow, we get all excited about, but we need to really think through how do we evaluate to make sure that it's aligned with the innovation goals, that what's that risk component to this, how is this going to transform or change the organization, how do we implement that change within the organization. So you need to establish guidelines, the kind of questions every innovation project should ask to ensure before projects get selected. This provides that clarity. And I can't just warn you not to ignore that and say, oh, we'll just figure it out if it feels good. We'll figure that out after we get through the first couple of ideas. No. Take something that somebody else is already doing. The criterias that I used when I was CTO at Hewlett Packard, they're published in my book, Beyond the Obvious. Go get that, or you can go to beyondtheobvious.com and you can search for the search criteria, use it free of charge, no license required. Start there if you're a for-profit business. In the same book and over at beyondtheobvious.com is the criteria that we created for the U.S. Department of Education for selecting ideas to run experiments in classrooms, in schools, school districts, state, and federal levels. Go take that, rip it off, use it free of charge, do whatever you want to do, but start with some kind of a criteria and then adjust. Tailor it to what you need, but make sure in your innovation strategy, you document and identify the guidelines that you are going to use to make sure that everybody's on the same page. Number 10, procedures for handling intellectual property rights. Now, many of you may be thinking, "Oh, I'm running a restaurant, or I'm running a machine shop business, or maybe you're a nonprofit." Understanding ownership of ideas applies to everybody, and just something you need to think about in your innovation strategy plan. And that could be simply saying, hey, we're not going to protect, we're going to publish all of our intellectual property, we're going to make it freely available, which means then nobody can patent it against you, or you're going to treat it as a trade secret. You're not going to go through the process of patenting it, but you're going to keep it highly, highly confidential as a trade secret to your organization. Or you're going to patent it, whatever it is. But this section of the innovation strategy document, it outlines the procedures for protecting and managing the company's intellectual properties. It should also include a plan for dealing with any disputes that may arise over intellectual property, particularly if your innovation strategy is to do partnering. If you're going to do co-innovation with third parties, understanding your posture, how you think about intellectual property is important. Now, in my case, one of my key objectives in this part of an innovation strategy for organizations and teams that report to me is defensive protection. What do I mean by defensive protection for intellectual property? Look, I don't get all excited about going off and suing people for patent infringements. They're very hard to do. It's very expensive. It could be $20 to $30 million to litigate a patent. It's very, very expensive. My thought is look, competitive advantage comes from execution. If you think, oh, I've got this piece of paper and now I've got this huge amount of value and I'm going to sit back and someone's going to license it and write me big checks. Not unless you've got $30 million to go litigate just because the U.S. Patent Office says that you have a patent doesn't mean the industry and the marketplace will recognize that. There are so many patents that the Patent Office issues that get canceled later on because the patent was not well written. There was previous invention that was already documented. It was in the public domain. So just because you have a patent from a patent office, there's no guarantee. And you cannot sit back on the laurels of that piece of paper. So in my case, in my intellectual property section of the innovation strategy document, it's about defense. I create patents in order to have enough patents in the patent pool to use as a defensive wall against somebody else suing us. So that's the strategy, and we call that out clearly. We're not today being proactive litigators. We don't sue, but that's our strategy. What's your strategy? And be clear about it, because clarity helps people make sure they align and understand what the objectives are when it comes to IP. Number 11, a policy for innovation training and development. The innovation strategy plan should include some form of policy for employees' training and development. Innovation training is something that most organizations have never done or do it very infrequently. And I would encourage you in your innovation strategy to say, as part of your innovation success within your organization, is to create that culture of innovation. And to create that culture of innovation, you have to provide training for skills and abilities. Everybody's creative. I'm a firm believer of that. But understanding how you do your framework and how do you select ideas and what are the key areas of innovation for this, budget year you want the organization to focus on? Is it new products? Is it process improvement? whatever it is, you need to train people so they understand what that is. Training, build up those skills. And if you do that right, you can create an organization that will result in generating innovations that create competitive advantage for you. So have that policy for innovation, training, and development. That is an important one. Number 12, a budget for implementation. So you've got your innovation strategy, you set your goals, you've got your process, documenting how you're going to document and share your best practices and how you're going to evaluate the innovations, blah, 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 right? What is the budget you need? When you're putting together a strategy document, what is it you need? Now, we talked about resources. The resources that I talked about before that's in your strategy document is about ongoing. What's the resources to achieve innovation success? This item is the budget to implement the innovation strategy, to implement the strategy. And this is, you need to include, all the various costs. That includes the funding for maybe recruiting. Maybe you need to go recruit a couple of people who are innovation experts, get them into your organization. That's part of that implementation piece. It could be hiring an innovation agency or an innovation consulting firm to advise you, to help you refine the strategy and help with the rollouts. Or you may choose to outsource the entire innovation management. If that's the case, that's part of the cost of implementing it. How are you going to put out an RFP, get innovation agencies to bid on it, and therefore then award a contract. Whatever that cost is to implement the innovation strategy, that is what you need to include in there. And again, this is something that is different from from just the ongoing resources needed to run innovation inside of an organization. So again, let me back up. I'm going to go through all of these again, just so you have them. And all of these will be posted up in the show notes so that you can go over there and collect those. So number one, what's the definition of innovation? Number two, description of the organization's innovation process. Number three, the identification of the innovation goals. What are the innovation goals? Number four, who are the key stakeholders? Who needs to be involved? Who provided input to your strategy? Number five, identification of resources needed to support the innovation strategy. Support being different than the implementation. Support, we're talking about ongoing. How are we going to fund R&D? How much dollars are we going to allocate every year to do this? How many people are going to be part of this, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So, number six, a timeline. How long is it going to take to implement, get this innovation strategy up and running? Is it, 3 months, 6 months, 9 months? How long is it going to take for you to stand up this innovation strategy? Number seven, how are you going to assess success? What does success look like when the innovation strategy is fully up and running? Number eight, a system for documenting and sharing best practices. And this is an ongoing effort. How are you going to show success? Number nine, guidelines for evaluating new technologies, new capabilities, new ideas, new whatever, products, services, whatever it is you're creating. How are you going to evaluate? How are you going to measure the ideas that you're going to fund to take forward to the next step? Number 10, procedures for handling intellectual property rights. Now, if you just listen to me rant a little bit on IP and it doesn't apply to you, skip that section in the innovation strategy. It may not be important to you depending on where you're at. But for me, good chunk of my career, at least the last 30 years of my career, have had a high involvement of IP because of the industries I've been in, which has always been high tech. But if it doesn't apply to you, that's fine. But if it does, get alignment. Get your stakeholders to agree what your position and posture is going to be on intellectual properties. Because if you've got a high impact innovation effort, you're going to generate IP. How are you going to handle that? Number 11, policy for innovation training and development. You need to build up your skills. You need to build up your organization skills. You need to secure good, high quality, top notch innovation leadership, innovation training for your individual contributors, for managers, leaders. There's a whole suite of skill sets that they need to give and improve and tune up and keep performing at the highest possible level. So what is that policy for innovation training? Different than normal training, different than leadership training. This is innovation training. And then number 12, the budget for implementation. What is the budget for the implementation of your innovation strategy? So back to the beginning, I started this talking about the need and the importance and the fact that you need an innovation strategy, and therefore you need to create an innovation strategy document. And we just went through the 12 items that I would recommend you have in that strategy document to help your organization stay ahead of your competition and be the market winners. So what part of the innovation strategy document is the one that's giving you the most heartburn? What one do you think is going to cause the biggest pushback from within your organization? I'd love to hear that. You can drop me a note. But the one that I have seen historically that has been problematic is around resourcing. Understanding the commitment from the organization on what the resources, not for the implementation, because that tends to be it's a one-time thing. You're getting something established, but the ongoing resources. How much are you going to fund to R&D and resource commitments for marketing and headcount from manufacturing? However your industry and your organization operates, getting people to commit those resources, that tends to be the one that I find most organizations have heartburn on. They tend to wave their hands and go, well, we'll wait and see what the project is. We'll size it, to support whatever great ideas you come up with, out of the innovation efforts. I've heard it all, right? Getting resource commitments is important. By the organization, the leadership committing those resources, it signals to everybody that the organization is serious about innovation. So getting that understood up front is part of your industry efforts and part of your organization efforts, part of your team efforts, and as part of your innovation strategy is absolutely critical. So that's the one that I've seen that tends to be the one that gets a big pushback. I'd love to hear your thoughts, your feedback. Post on social media, post in the comments section of the show notes for this show. Love to hear your thoughts. And with that, we're going to wrap up this week's show. Thank you for your time. Thank you for joining us today. Really appreciate you committing the time to listen to the show. Hopefully you find this content useful and helpful as you are on your innovation journey. If there's any way we can help you along your path, giving you support, advice, input, suggestions, feel free to reach out. You can send me a note at phil@killerinnovations.com. That email comes directly to me. You can post it also over on the online community, theinnovators.community. Theinnovators.community is a free, no-charge community where innovators hang out. That's where you'll find me. You'll find other leading innovators from around the world. everything from high school kids to college students who are wanting to be innovators in their organizations, entrepreneurs, innovation consultants, you name it, all collected in the innovators community. Hop on over there. You can post your questions there, and you'll get a whole plethora of input from experts from all around the world. And with that, thanks again for joining us today. I truly do appreciate it, and we will be back right here next week for next week's episode. So we'll talk to you then. Bye-bye.
Podcasting nonstop since 2005, this has been the Killer Innovation Show on the Innovators Network.
This show is distributed by the Innovators Network. For more information and other great shows and content, visit theinnovators.network.